steer you. Take turns. Sometimes we get excited and want to ask a bunch of questions. So if you have a bunch of questions, ask your best one first. And then we'll go around, and if there's time, you can ask the second one or ask the speaker after. That's maybe another one I like to highlight. Try to not softball questions. Sometimes the softball question makes it feels like Joel's not here today. His dad is right near the end, so he's spending time with his dad. But Joel loves the softball question. I don't know why. He thinks it helps, but it usually doesn't. So I think it's helpful to ask harder questions, like that you really want to know answers to or you don't understand, even if it feels hard to ask. So think about that. Anything I missed for anybody? Okay.
Latecomers buy coffee next week.
Yeah. Well, we'll see who walks in after Jeremy then. See what game of chicken a little bit. Thanks to Danielle. She's gonna help sponsor coffee. I don't know, maybe you gave me your logo and I didn't see it yet, but I don't think you gave it to me. So okay. It's not February yet either, but Danielle helped provide a bunch of the supplies and the cups and the coffee, and that's what she does for her business, I think. Maybe you should get up and present and tell us about it. We have a space in Ogden up at Guyver, so I know Oz and Danielle are considering coming up and getting involved, and there's lots going on. So thanks for being part of the community and helping out, and we'll get your logo up there. One last thing, so Chris is going to be our first presenter. I got his slides. Jacob has been hanging out, so 2 regulars today. I think most people know Chris because he's been here a lot, and Jacob has been as well, and I've been pushing him. He says, I'll get up one day. So Chris does it all the time. He's a veteran. He loves to share and gives us updates, so I'm looking forward to seeing that from Chris. But Jacob, I think, right, is like we all have that hesitation sometimes where it's like, I want to share, but I don't feel ready. That's a very common thing. So if you're saying the same thing to yourself, like, oh, I think I want to share, but I'm not ready yet. I'll do it soon. You're in good company. It's a very normal thing that we all go through. So I think, just like anybody first time, like potentially a little nervous. Heck, Chris has done a bunch. He might be a little nervous, but part of the best part about what MC is a bunch of friends, right? Really friendly, and might ask you some hard questions, but for all the right reasons, right? So before I transition to Chris, one of the things that we started during COVID that I think has been powerful and important is we like to ask people to celebrate and complain. Sometimes as entrepreneurs and founders, we hold on to and hold in the hard stuff or the good stuff, and it's not great on both ends. I do a lot of executive coaching with folks, and sometimes we just got to move through that stuff. So if anybody's got anything they want to celebrate, something that happened that you didn't get to tell anybody with, sometimes you're like, oh yeah, that was pretty awesome. It's good for the nervous system and for the brain and to actually move stuff forward. So celebrate. I'm a big complainer. Sometimes energy gets stuck and we feel like we can't share that part either. We don't want to put it on people, but sometimes the best way to move through that is just putting it out there, and it's not as heavy as you think. Sometimes it is, I get it. But so make a quick offer, a couple people, if anybody wants to celebrate or complain something today, now is a good time. Hans, what do you got?
So we have the VA Golden Age Game, which is a senior Olympic and Paralympic competition in Utah in August. I am one of the participants in 5 categories.
Which ones? Shot put?
So for me, it's 20K recumbent cycling through Immigration Canyon and around Dimple Dell. So it is endurance.
Hard pass.
It's hard. And for those of you who I don't like, I'm an expert pistol and rifle shooter. So those are going to be my competition. And then I got to tone it down with some cornhole and bocce.
That's more my speed. Yeah.
So we're looking for volunteers. If you know any veterans who are 55 or older by December 31st, they're welcome to come participate. The tools and everything is provided through the VA. And so we have 1,000 athletes we're expecting this August. So we need a lot of help with volunteers, in-kind donations, sponsorships, the works. But we also need audience. So hopefully it's not on a Wednesday morning. We have events on Wednesday morning, but other than that, I hope to see you guys at all the events.
Congrats, us. Yeah.
Last week
I'll be rooting for you in bocce ball or one of the other ones. Probably.
Yeah. And while we massage the cramp from the other ones.
Hey. Yeah, let's do it.
So I work on another project that's actually a very rare mineral supplement. And maybe 5 years ago, I got very nervous about having partners. And in truth, I pushed them away, but spent years being very angry about how things went. And over time, I've been able to truly, in my heart, forgive them and, in essence, forgive myself for pushing them away. And this last week, just coincidentally, bumped into one of the guys, and he was glad to see me and actually wants to be my customer again. It was a really cool story for me.
Awesome. Great, dude. Yeah, see? Both the complaint and a celebration, right? It's like that's some of the hard stuff. Chris, will you pass the mic over here? Jake, I plugged the thing in. What do I need to do to get you?
Okay. Hi, I'm Zach. I'm working on a product that I'll be sharing in a few weeks here. I'm in this phase that's if you have ever planted something from a seed and you're waiting for it to sprout and like nothing is happening for a very long period of time. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm in this phase with it where I've built the thing and then now I'm just waiting. Like I'm looking for a business partner, I'm looking for customers, and it's just a very like calm, or I don't know if nothing is happening phase. So I don't think it's really a complaint because I really think I am in this like just waiting period of time. But yeah, just waiting for the next thing.
Yeah. I complain when I get bored and wait too sometimes, so I hear you. It doesn't have to be a complaint. Sometimes waiting's nice, but not always.
I've got a celebration. So I know some of you guys know me with my little children's picture books. In fact, I launched one here a few years back. And my new one just went to the printer last week. And so I'm pretty excited about that. And maybe I'll do another little pre-launch here, something like that. Thanks.
No, congrats, Mike. That's great. Happy birthday, Mike.
Congratulations.
Okay, I saw Ben's hand up, so we'll do the last one with Ben, and then we're going to transition to Chris.
I got to chat with Larissa, who runs the original 1 Million Cups in Kansas City. We had a nice hour-long chit-chat about stuff, and that was kind of interesting and cool, and got to learn about that.
That's awesome. I think the first one was actually in Texas, maybe in Austin. So it started out of Kansas City, but the guy working for it was remote, and he was like, let's start. He's like very entrepreneur for a big foundation that doesn't move very fast. He's like, can we test this thing? So I think Kansas City actually didn't have the first one. It took him a little while to get one, but she might have ran the first one there, but it doesn't make it the first 1MC chapter. So tell Larissa to calm down. They're always taking credit for stuff. Looks like we got the Miingl up. So we got 3 or 4 people online joining us. So I wanted to leave this slide up before I transition to Chris. And just, if you guys don't know Miingl, Jake did all sorts of cool stuff. I think he won like 5th place in the pitch competition at Utah Tech Week last week. He's here always putting stuff in. He's always giving and helping. So doing cool events. You can go to Miingl, but just wanted to say thanks and give a shout out to Jake and Miingl for running hybrid events and making it happen. So he's always back there. So I get to see him a lot because I'm standing this way, but most people don't get to see him. Yeah, and if you don't talk into the mic, the hybrid folks can't hear you. So although we can hear you because this space is great, those people can't hear you. So keep that in mind. It's harder to do sometimes. I do it a lot, so I get used to it. But sometimes people don't like the stand-up comic thing. It doesn't feel natural. So Jacob, leaning in your direction today. It's talking to the mic's gonna be maybe hard. Maybe you'll be great at it. We'll find out. Maybe you got a career in stand-up comedy. You just didn't know it yet. Okay, Chris, come on up. I'm gonna go ahead and transition your slide here and find it. My computer might have even died. That's annoying. No, there it is. All right. So Chris Harris has been a friend. He's been a 1MC member, maybe besides me, one of the longest standing ones. He's been kicking around tires for a long time with us. So he's got a couple different projects. So if you don't know Chris, wonderful gentleman, good friend, and always doing something cool. So let's give Chris a big round of applause.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. So Thank you very much. I'm glad we've got a full house. This is amazing for our 1MC community, but I hope that this is also helpful and informative for us. I'm here with my partner, Dave Jones. He can raise his hand over here. You'll see him in some of the slides. We work on a very cool project. It's actually an electric vehicle kit. About 10, 11 years ago, I started working with a man. You may recognize this vehicle. Up in Mill Creek Canyon, Dr. Schoenberg worked in the Department of Engineering. He's now Professor Emeritus at the University of Utah. And as a retirement effort, he wanted to solve the problem of emissions, but also it was a problem of parking, congestion, fuel consumption, economy. It was sort of a panacea for several items that are real drag in the topic of transportation. So you all might recognize the template that I've used. It ain't much. I'm not a PowerPoint genius, but what this says is we make a plug and play electric vehicle kit. This was always the dream, working with Dr. Schoenberg, that we would have something that was easy to assemble. And during COVID, Dave and I began working together in 2020, and he's done it. He's created an electric vehicle circuit that is plug and play. No, that's all right. That's all right. I'll check out my own slides. This is just a fun schematic that was from 2016. This is the EcoTrike 16 that Dr. Schoenberg was working on. It is very much a prototype, and nevertheless, it has a VIN. It's got a license plate. He had several successful iterations of this vehicle before sort of tapping out. In 2020, he left me with one of the vehicles. It was actually this 16 model. Dave got it working. There are a litany of problematic aspects of that circuit, primarily dealing with it didn't work correctly. So Dave's actually got this really fun jar. It's an old pretzel jar full of all of the components that we did not need. And this was a very constructive time for us. During 2020, we got together on a regular basis, and you all might recall that Make Salt Lake is a maker space over by the Arts Alliance. And we had a whole lot of fun getting together, ripping out those wires, rewiring the whole effect, making the vehicle work with these are off-the-shelf parts. Kelly makes controllers, but they also make an interesting new technology, rather new. It's called a hub motor. So it makes it a plug-and-play effect. Dave was able to make that circuit work effectively, and then he reduced that to a circuit board. And now we're on to iterating with a printed circuit board. And so we've sent these designs off to a house, and currently he's got several other little updates to that printed circuit board, and aiming for things that are far out of my capability, my wheelhouse, but making this suitable for the modern automotive industry, and or my bigger target is underwriters list, so that we can have a product that is available globally. I'll tell you a little bit about how revolutionary this is. We would hope to find a way to make the American garage, of the 50s, where people were working on cars together, something that we can bring back in a way. It really is bringing transportation and auto mechanics into the realm of consumer electronics, but also a model of distributed manufacturing, where we have a vehicle, and the frame is all now in digital design. What do we call it? Virtual designs. All the CAD is there on SolidWorks, and we're very open to opening this making it freely available globally. And the idea is, and this is where we're going to be looking for a little bit of help to get actually this board and a wiring harness that accompanies it on the market, so that we might open up the possibilities of, we can call it DIY or we can call it distributed manufacturing. There are several models in which a vehicle like this might be very appealing. I'll tell you a little bit about the invention, the product that we have. We call it the Low 5. It turns out there are only 5 things that a vehicle, that is a motorcycle, this is registered as a motorcycle, it's got 3 wheels. There are only 5 things that are required. You got to have a horn, you got to have headlights, brake lights, it's got to manage the throttle naturally, and then it has to have directionals, right? You've got to have blinkers. So this board, the Low 5, effectively manages all of that in concert with the battery, the charge controllers, and in a former model, in Andy's original model, also a solar panel. So this was promising to be a solar vehicle. And incidentally, one modern solar panel can bring down enough power and charge the batteries enough to satisfy the average American driver. The average American drives about 30 miles a day. Incidentally, the median American mileage is only 14 miles. 14 miles a day. One solar panel can charge our batteries enough to move the vehicle about 30 miles a day. I think this is revolutionary. The congestion, the parking, the cost, the maintenance, the sheer expense, but also the heat and what happens with emissions with internal combustion engines is, I think it's not tolerable anymore. The world is shifting. California has a well-established cap and trade system. There's a carbon market there. We have some associates that might be, probably will be, adopting our vehicle, that is the frame, to Singularity University. Singularity is an online university. These guys, they work on the California Board of Education, and they teach with Singularity sort of in their spare time. And the hope is that we can move this project forward in a way that's highly distributed, and then find a way to make a buck off of the board, off of the invention. We've been putting years into this. For those of you, and I've given presentations before, I don't assume that anybody really remembers. And I brought the car. Dave's been involved in several really high profile activities. He actually hand built the first successful pump for the artificial heart. Highly involved in the cochlear implant, among other things. You know, the one story I really love is the X-ray used to be a 2-room operation. You have the X-ray over here, and then you have this whole room of other equipment. And here in the advent of computers and computing, Dave had the know-how and the wherewithal to eliminate that other room, and he made the X-ray into a portable X-ray. This is just sitting around the fire, cracking nuts and eating walnuts. I mean, this is chill activity for him. But we're having a good time. We are bootstrapping. We might have put in $1,000 at this point, and 3 years. And 3 years. So, you know, you might ask why, but I think, you know, the reason why we might need EVs is self-descriptive. You know, the cost of transportation is something we would like to also consider, that this board could be a suitable transitional technology. I recently traveled to Indonesia, and I witnessed the thousands and millions of scooters that are on the road. We've been approached by one group that said, you know, just from the carbon credits alone, we could find investment capital. We're looking for a way forward. If it's a license agreement, if it's just open sourcing and like releasing this to the Creative Commons, I'm not an MBA. I'm not a seasoned corporate exec. I'm like true believer. I want to be a good friend, but I think I am just sort of supporting a good project that is self-evident. And yeah, and so we're looking for some suggestions, some thoughts, and how to navigate the project of commercialization and distributing this. So don't know quite how to make money with this, and I'm not sure if I even have another slide. The bigger idea would be to get certified or licensed by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. We'd love to create also a STEM program where the electronics, the maintenance of this board were accessible, maybe through augmented reality, maybe through an IKEA handbook. We've got a lot of ideas, but that's kind of quick and dirty. Yeah, that's what I'm up to. The project used to be called Sunzy Car. It is now called, we're really just focused on kind of the low 5. But the vehicle itself, yeah, we would like to believe that it's got a future.
It's a set of electronics desperately searching for a chassis to be under. There you go.
Okay, thoughts, questions, feedback on Lo-Fi. Zach. Yeah, let's give him a big round of applause. Yeah.
Great presentation. My suggestion or thoughts are maybe there's a specific type of certification where these would be safe to operate, like Disney World, or places that have a lot of foot traffic, and maybe they're using some other type of machinery to get around that's not as green as this, but maybe less large vehicles, driving, or maybe farm where they're getting around on the OHVs, producing that type of emission. Just my thoughts are on the safety.
A couple hands, but I lost track already.
Love the presentation. Also thinking about like targeting specific communities. So spent a lot of time in Madison, very bike friendly community. If you're talking about places that can support the infrastructure, has that infrastructure that supports these type of machines. Identifying key locations where you could potentially pilot, whether, I know you're focusing on the low 5, but like also the machines that run them, finding those key locations, focusing in on them first, because like you can go, from all the way out from the farmlands all the way down to downtown Madison, Wisconsin, all on bike trails. And it's, a pretty cool, place to, and I know there's several other big cities like that. So finding those areas, partnering with them to be able to roll these out might be another good place to think about, where to roll these out.
Sparks one thing for me, like even at Bear Lake and different places, you get these like side-by-side pedal bikes people rent, right? So like little communities that people can use to do touristy stuff. So you could even like, they rent water sports things and all sorts of stuff, right? So you could also like make these little communities where people rent them and cruise around and bring them back and charge up. So.
Yeah, as someone who's got a lot of solar and EVs, what is your primary piece in this? I think I'm understanding that you're trying to flush out the development of the low 5 controller, and then everyone else just sort of follows the blueprint or schematic to manufacture their own. And is there a specific ask you're making of us?
Okay, so that's great. Let me be clear. I'm not a mechanical engineer, nor am I highly mechanically inclined, nor am I personally inclined to manufacture. I would love to hand these off to a manufacturer, but there is a transformation that happens, hopefully, with the body, the frame. We can open source these designs. That's just fine. It's not got a lot of curb appeal, but for a developing nation, I think it will do. And I know that there are a lot of bright people out there. There are a lot of bright, ambitious people that could be industrious and start a business building that vehicle, or just simply put our circuitry into a new iteration of the vehicle. Sorry? Okay, great. Thank you.
Rod's got one, then I'll come back to Megan. Make my way around. Anthony's got one too.
How scalable is the board, is the circuitry?
Super scalable. Super scalable.
So I mean, you kind of put some numbers up there for, you know, the range and
Yeah.
2 motors versus or 1 motor. I'm just wondering if is it a battery limitation, or what is the limitation as far as?
Okay, so let me just reveal that I don't know what these numbers are. The vehicle that you saw there in the picture cost about $7,000 in parts alone, building one. I think that we can cut that in half for a retail model. We are just now at the stage where we're getting a cost of goods. We're creating the Gerber files and the bill of materials for a local electronics house to give us a bid on what it would do, what it would cost to have scaled manufacturing of the board. There's a wiring harness that goes along with that too. So I'm guessing $500 for that piece. I just don't know. I really don't know.
So a guy at the Guyver Hub in Lehigh that does all sorts of stuff with vehicles and make stuff. So you should
No
talk
kidding.
to Matt. Our warehouse manager Leroy is like, you'd be surprised. Like the guys down at Guyver Hub is like a bunch of makers and creators that have
that's what's
businesses. So it's
super
great.
cool.
Yeah.
I
So
love Guyver.
talk to
I
that.
already love Guyver. I've
We
never
pass
been
this to
there.
Megan.
Great presentation.
Thank you so much.
I've seen these cars. I live near Mill Creek Canyon.
Yeah.
So my sister and I hike in there frequently, and we called them the little squirts. And we're like, we see them. So they've been out for years.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen them lately. So I think getting it visible and people going like, oh my gosh, what is that? Like getting them out in the city if you can. My suggestion that I've used is the Mechanical Engineering Extension Program at the U. They have capstone projects that the engineer students need a senior thesis that you might get another piece of your nugget to how to get it manufactured. And then I'm manufacturing a product in physical therapy, but UAMI, the Utah Advanced Initiative for Manufacturing, will help you. Like there's a really great ecosystem, I think, that you're on the brink of. But I think if you can get it seen, that could be like so important, because that I already was like, that thing exists.
Right.
So you've
Yeah,
got it.
We've been
but-
shy about social media.
Yeah.
I've been shy or incapable of just getting too much out. Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
That's the right approach.
So you're
yeah,
you're
UM
there,
is great, and they,
your community is getting it more now. Like even back then, we didn't have as many e-vehicles or solar. It was like, what is that family doing? Like that is so cool. So I think your the consciousness is more ready for you.
Thank you.
For
Yeah,
sure.
Agreed.
All right, last one to Anthony, because we have another presenter. Sorry, Antonio. Oz stuttered when he said it.
Love you, though. It's okay. So, was actually curious about, similar to what the first gentleman said there. Have you thought about making it an accessibility option? As far as, I'm not sure what the speed limitations are on it, one way or another, but that way, instead of having to sell each one individually to consumers, being able to get grants or government money to just sell it that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, one of our proponents, associates, is an NGO consultant, and he works actually very closely with Disney and with some of the Disney creatives. And the original thought for this was that it would be a vehicle for Disney World. They have since come across Aptera, and they're into a true solar vehicle, but that's the right idea. And similar to other suggestions about, you know, using it in tourist places, that NGO consultant firm, Blue Communities, works with several island nations. And Cuba, actually, the Minister of Transportation, the Minister of Tourism, along with the Dean of an engineering college there, said, oh, this would be a dream come true for our island. So there are partners in the offing, and I think, you know, a little bit of guidance and just a little more persistence, and we'll get something on the road. Yeah, appreciate that. No, you're right.
Great feedback. If you didn't get a chance to share with Chris, hopefully you can stick around. You've got a couple of these, my friend. What I like to say is they keep hot things hot and cold things cold, which make them sort of magic by themselves. But more importantly, for entrepreneurs, asking for help is often a hard and challenging thing. So with sharing today in this mug, we always ask, what can our community do that would make a difference for you?
Oh man, I really appreciate just the chance to be seen, you know, and talk about it, you know, with a forgiving audience, and yeah, I appreciate your time. And if anybody's got about $1 million, we estimate it'd be about $1 million to get this.
There you go.
Yeah, honestly. Okay, so creating a high quality prototype, Pop Dave's electric system in there. It's about 50 grand to pass the NHTSA National Highway Traffic certification. They just have to get the temperature of the brakes after a 500-foot stop. And then build out a certification for technicians and prime the pump to get several models out there so that we're teaching people how to build them. Yeah, it can be simple. It can be really simple. And yeah, I'm holding hope for that.
Awesome. Let's give Chris a big round of applause. Hey, we started a little late today, so we're going a little long, but Jacob is here and he's got a company numbered. He also, I think, has been a little bit, like Chris, hesitant to share for one reason or another. He'll tell you why, but I'll toss up his slides and let's give Jacob a big round of applause.
Hello, my name is Jacob Noble. Let's see, how shall I start this? I'm basically a refugee from Cambodia. I tell you this story because there is a reason why I'm creating this social networking platform. Okay, if you're familiar with the history, if anyone is familiar with the history of Cambodia, there was a dictator, Pol Pot, and his regime killed roughly 1.5 to 3 million people. And for 40 plus years, I didn't understand why I was not succeeding in life. Partly I blame others and everything else, but a lot of it was in Cambodia, if you stood up, if you're educated, if you wore glasses, you were killed. And so my family taught me, a mentor told me in 2015, so it's just like 40 years plus, that I was flying under the radar. And because I was flying under the radar, I wasn't really doing anything in life. And that revelation changed a lot of things. I became spiritually active and then physically active. I bought myself a road bike, became, very fit. Then socially active, I got people involved in my activities. I brought 90 people to Mount St. Helens with me. And it was a transformation in the sense that I was seeing myself develop as an individual. I started to see myself differently. Then I saw other people growing through this process. Then this also spurred me to go to live went back to school after 20 years and went back to BYU, Idaho. I didn't really pick a major. I just said, I'm going to pick business management, entrepreneurship, and that means I'm creating business. What business am I creating? A social networking platform. I thought I can reach more people if I had some kind of way to do so. And that's how we went about. On back here's, in this process, I also had created, I also got people to do Latin dancing. So he moved out here to Utah. And I also had started a little the hobby that turned into a business. So it started to affect me in a way that was positive. And I thought maybe I can help others make some changes too. So going through this. The problem we want to address that I also felt, I keenly feel in the community is that we are targeting Gen Z, the entrepreneurs who are feeling very lonely. Gen Z, for example, we are looking at they're the most connected of any generations digitally. However, they are the worst off as loneliness at 61% or 79% you're looking at. And we want to address this by basically providing a social networking platform that would basically give people incentives to participate in life. We're looking at having a mentorship where you are paired up with others who is willing to, and we are planning to implement AI, which will also assist in this process of mentorship. As you can see, 92% fail most of their goals. We're hoping that we can help people succeed with fulfilling their goals. Numbers, basically, we're going to, like I said, incentivize them with rewards, human mentorship, personal growth, which we hope that anyone would be able to receive from this. And let's see, we want to assess the individual, their past, their experiences. That will gauge how we can give them advice. We feel, as I was going through this change, when I made social connections, actually it brought health. So that be mental, physical health, emotional health. We nowadays hear about more mental health issues. We want to address this before we get into the crisis of suicide. If we can get them connected with the right relevant people that will address their needs, that's what we hope to do with our platform. And again, I mentioned what we're going to target. Just in case you want to see that. Self-directed skill levels. These are the people we will target people who are actually driven to do self-improvement first. Our initial target market are going to be our advocates for our company, and in process affect the change of others who aren't as motivated. Our revenue models, we're looking at starting with affiliate marketing and partnership, sponsorship first. We won't have the masses or the numbers for advertising until later. Subscription model, depending upon our features that they would like to use. Our market opportunities, we're looking at a combined, we are a niche market kind of way. We are doing social networking platforms, but also personal development. We're basically looking at an industry of 168 billion onto SAM of 42 and then SOM of 4 billion. So it is quite a lucrative market. We feel that we can succeed. Projected growth, we're looking at probably 20 to 30% year for the first 3 to 5 years. And mainly, I want to point out that we can probably, with the marketing, the proper marketing campaign, we can capture 1 to 3% of the market. And we'll move on to here. This is some of our competitors. This is a crowded space. We have juggernauts out there. So we have Meta, but as you can see, no other platform performs or will perform in a sense of these categories. Community engagement, gamification. We have self-discovery, personal development, and the tailored mentorship, which we possess. This is our team, Ragtag right now. This is the reason why we are partnering with people like Jeremy out there. We have some great hitters out there, so we're looking to capitalize on these experienced people to give us better advice. I forgot one I shouldn't put in. He's not yet accepted our invitation, so I'll have to remove him. The ask, eventually, where you are looking for, since we're going to raise 12 million, we're looking for mainly talents and resources. So we're looking mainly for the thing that we'll probably want first is getting the right people on the bus, which is the CTO. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Well done. So I know you were nervous about it, but that was way better than I think. most people do. So you did great, and you look great too. So maybe the best dressed person at all these things all the time. So
Thank you.
Jacob never lets us down. Yeah, I mean, you know. Questions, thoughts, feedback. All right, Ben.
What's your customer journey? How do they get signed up, and then how do they go through this process of everything that you're offering?
We we have a MVP that's we're working on right now. I haven't been able to talk to my software architect and see what the UX UI experience would be. What we imagine as simple as signing up like any other. You log onto the website or download the app, and you go through the process of the cursory adding of your personal information. We want to make sure we have validated people. This is important to us, since we don't want anyone just making a bot or some other scammers. We want to make sure that these individuals feel safe in our environment. And hopefully that answers your question. Not sure yet, but we can explore more.
Make my way back around. So keep those hands. I saw one over there.
Thanks. Great presentation. I love the whole concept of it. I think it adds to the whole kind of toxicity of social media. You're trying to make it an uplifting thing. My question is, do you have any IP protected? What's stopping Meta from taking over?
Great question. We are, since we're in a phase where we're just developing, we have a guy who's working on the MVP. We don't have any particular. There is one IP that we are considering, which is the validation of individuals' experience. So that's still in the working as far as the IP goes.
Jacob, so this will help me with one of my projects in my master's program. And my challenge is to how to get resources and people more connected. And so as a veteran, and you know that I do a lot with veterans, and one of the biggest challenges we have is getting them more social in a positive way. So we can chat later on. I would love to talk more about this.
Sounds great, Oz. Thank you.
I know Phil and Mike and Ivan. If somebody else had their hand up, put it up again because I lost it. Okay. 12 million is a lot to raise, so I'll bring it up. Nobody said it yet, especially early, especially in this climate. Right. I'm a former venture investor, still make venture investments. Unless you have a good friend that's a billionaire raising $12 million without significant traction, like even, you know, usually even to raise 2 million, you need like $1 million in ARR. So 12 million is a big one unless you got a real good friend that really likes you. Just
right. We know that the numbers, our MVP or our company is not, I feel, I might be wrong. And we're working, yesterday we explored a firm called Lohmann and Associates. They will give us a research as far as the numbers goes. So these are just numbers that we're just throwing up. No. But here's the reason why we thought that. Right. It's a fair question, and it's a fair problem to address, because we're looking at that this isn't necessarily run of the mill in the sense that most MVPs, you can do bootstraps or whatever else, and they're going, why would you want to enter at 12 million or 2 or 6? 6 is the idea, but doubling it for the unforeseen. However, it's what we're thinking is most people are accustomed to certain functionalities, certain features on social networking platform. We can't come out with something subpar. And we figure that this, when it comes out, it has to meet certain standard that you are all used to. And that's where I think that's why we had to factor in the said.
It's a great cause. It's hard to get, and I want to see. That's what we've been with.
No, and with that number, we may change it, but I just don't. We're just throwing it out there for us.
Yeah. So Robert sort of took part of what I was going to say. I mean, I've raised a few pieces, and 12 billion is a big nut. And we've had businesses that were actually delivering revenue and had intellectual property. So again, great if you can, go for it. The piece of advice that I would provide is, I think you should triple down on the AI mentorship, because that to me is where your differentiation is. And if you show how that technology works and you have the ability to demonstrate that, where people are looking for advice, as a virtual dad or something like that, if you can demonstrate that, I think you can start to develop some excitement, and that might get people to start to say, okay, I want to invest in this. And I've also done that. I want it to be perfect before I release, because people won't appreciate it. I don't think it usually, my experience is usually doesn't work that way. Get something going and you start to develop something that has some excitement, develop some momentum, and the momentum will build on itself.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm gonna make my way. We got maybe 3 or 4 more.
You had one slide there that talked about the little circle of how you're going to get, and advertising was number 4 on it. Yeah, right there. You talked about affiliate. Why are you putting, and I mean, I used to be in the advertising game, but I'm not really heavy in the advertising game right now, but why are you putting advertising as number 4, whereas most new businesses need to really, to jumpstart it, you really need to get some advertising out there. And I think that having it as a 4th place kind of a thing is more of a bootstrap mentality. So
the only reason why we're thinking about, it's a great question, because I've always experienced from others thinking that advertising would take us having to have a certain critical mass. If we can reach that critical mass, we can put advertising up there, as I believe they want certain monthly active users before they jump in. So that's the only reason why we place advertising as 4th. At any of this, it can be, we have about 12 revenue streams ideas that we can implement. It depends on the stage and how fast we're progressing. So if that comes fast, I'm more than willing to say, no, we're going with advertising. So is that, I hope that answer.
I'm just suggesting.
No, but
because I think it really.
Right. If we can find a way, and I'm not an expert on that, but yes, I would love to explore that. Huh?
Sounds like my process.
Okay.
Jacob, great presentation. So
thanks, Matt.
Ironically, my first company I ever built was a social media, personal media kind of thing called Dedoof. To their point, we actually raised money, awarded the best startup in Utah in 2014, and yet still ultimately failed. Because in social media, it's like you're either one of the 4 big dogs or you're nobody. Like there are no small social media companies. So I think my suggestion would just be, like, you're solving a cool pain point, maybe focus on being an app to solve mentorship or loneliness or a pain point. But unless you're TikTok that's Chinese backed, or Meta, or Snapchat, like you're nobody. There isn't, like, so explore that maybe, as there isn't really yeah. So a pain point of, like, people need mentorship and they'll pay $6.99 a month to just have you connect them to a mentor. Like, focus on, maybe what my suggestion is, focus on a revenue model that's fix one thing or solve one thing as an AI powered thing, but it's trying to be a personal experience, a lot of pain, a lot of, like, 5 years of building that thing, and everybody told us it was the greatest thing ever, and we won every award and raised money and everything, and it's still, like, trying to be a social media company, especially now when just empty followers don't mean anything anymore. They used to, but they don't. So that would be my suggestion, is really one problem you solve, one revenue model, figure out what that is, and, like, be an app that just does that one thing. If you want to connect people to mentors so they're not lonely, just do that one thing.
Right. That is our initial core of features that we want to focus. And I appreciate that, because I remember our conversation initially about that. In the social networking, there's a figure of 6.6. Users have 6.6 social networking platforms on their phone. As you can see, there's still, I infer as they're still searching for something. And the numbers tell us the current social media aren't meeting their needs. They're more lonely. So we hope that we can capture that particular as well as maybe later on transition. And this is where I need to figure out how, and having a CTO would help us figure to get that. Ivan.
Yeah, I think you started with a slide on Gen Z and loneliness, and then kind of talked about how your product was about getting people to find, matched up with mentors. To me, they're two separate problems, right? And I don't think you necessarily solve loneliness by matching them with mentors. So there are two sets of problems, and I think you need to focus on one first versus the other. My
Okay.
opinion.
So in my loneliness too, I don't know how, I hope I can answer those questions. My experience was, for me, was to get out and doing something physically. And if we can incentivize people by doing quests, when I played video games for years on end on World of Warcraft, I met other people who also felt lonely. So I don't know how to go about completely, but I figure for me was first to get you out doing something, just for a walk, go for a hike or something. And if we can say incentivize those portion and get them out, because the gaming world, they incentivize you to stay in the game or play on your phone or whatever it is. But if we can somehow, we have a figure of using real, excuse me, real points that means something. But for example, for every point that you gain, you get a kernel wheat. And we hope that using that, they can use it to trade with others. And then, be it from philanthropic or some other means, but these points will actually have meanings. That they can feed someone eventually, or whatever it is, that they accumulate something. So hopefully we appeal to the higher motivational intrinsic value. I don't know, Ivan. We'll work on that. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking up such a noble cause. Loneliness, the loneliness epidemic has been exacerbated during COVID, but it's happened well before COVID. And my question is, the answer to loneliness is more human connection, right? A sense of belonging. And I really appreciate a modern approach that you're taking, which is using technology, which we're all going to have anyways, to alleviate that challenge. And I wondered if you'd talk a little bit, you kind of touched on it just now, a little bit more about the actual program, the mentorship program and the personal development program, and how that will contribute to, curing the loneliness epidemic.
That's a very difficult question for me to answer. The only thing I was thinking about is, hopefully I can answer, if anything else, small, but it's by small and simple means. Meaning that we hopefully can transform people's habits in these small things, and in which will hopefully lead to one thing to another. My transformation wasn't like, monumental, like all of a sudden. It was easy. And I hopefully, when what we share with people on our social networking platform will be incremental things, like helping them shift their habits or helping them. And if we can leverage, which we hope that people will share their information as far as to us with our AI and everything else about them, that they feel safe in that process, their personality, their experience, whether they had a job as a lawn mowing or whatever it is. We want to build a profile on that individual and then hopefully look at that individual and say, this is the next step that you can take. And it's not, I don't know if I can answer your question at all. I apologize.
It's okay. It's a big question. And obviously from the responses, it seems like you've hit on something that everybody can relate to, is aware of. I think the bigger question is, how do you monetize it? Not too different than Chris, right? So Chris also has a big idea. So big ideas sometimes are hard to monetize. That's why we're all maybe in this room oftentimes. So not even the big ones, even the little ones. So you're definitely hunting on the right area, I think, because people can relate to it. How do you make money? Again, lots of people have done it lots of ways. So I'm not one to share much advice. I know like Strava is a good example of like motivating people and rewarding and incentivizing, right? So like getting people out. So whose models can you borrow to get some stuff that, again, solves the loneliness problem. I don't know how you do it, but I think hunting around the right area will make a big difference for people.
Right. So our value proposition reflects that of Facebook, Niantic, which makes the Pokemon Go, Strava, and World of Warcraft, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So we hope that through all those combinations, somehow we can find a way to solve that.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to try it out. So, well done. You're looking good. I'm glad you got up and shared. We've been talking about it for a while, so now you can check that off the list.
Yes.
And with it comes this fancy mug that keeps hot things hot and cold things cold, because we all take caffeine differently. We're not at all, but there's healthy ways to use it. You don't have to put caffeine in it. You can put booze in it. You can put all sorts of stuff in it. But with it comes the opportunity to get help and support. So what can people in this room and this community do that would make a difference for Jacob, for Numbered? How can we help? What would make a difference?
So what's important to us right now is having the right people on the bus. Having either the sponsors. I was going to see.
Jake can switch this over, maybe. If you can hear us. There it is.
So again, having the right people on the bus is the most important thing. We, as you can see, our team is very small and not many of the executive. CTO is what we're looking for. And if you are more than willing to, like, in your specialty as far as advisor, we would love to hear and consider you as well. That's mainly thing right now. Money, I feel, will come as soon as we have a great team.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Best way to reach out is this guy. Oh, I messed it up. QR code that I'll try to get back up here in a sec. Is that the best way for
Yes.
people to connect with you if they want to be?
There's an email, and I think the QR code was just send me a direct message on LinkedIn, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so LinkedIn, that QR code, that email. So let's give Jacob a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Well done. It's not as scary. Was it as scary as you thought? Better, worse? Thumbs up? Yeah. Maybe still the adrenaline's still pumping. It's always different. It always, like, in our mind, like, we make it harder, but also, like, it's also different, right? So just like how we learn is, like, we learn by doing. So it's experiential. So it's easy to point, but until you're up front, it's a different experience. So if you haven't been up front before and you'd like to share, right? It doesn't have to, you don't need fancy slides. You don't have to raise 12 million bucks. You can have a nonprofit. It can be an idea. It can be a company. We take all sorts of folks. Part of it is getting to know and being part of the community. So if you are interested to share, 1mcslc.com is our website that's better than the national one, mostly because I can get the data and communicate with you effectively. You can hit me up on LinkedIn. You can come chat. But thanks for being here. Thanks to Anthony and Underbelly for having us. If you are interested in their co-working, if you want to stay beyond 11, you can get a day pass and get fancy coffee and snacks. They got monthly memberships, cool meeting spaces, podcast studio. So thanks to Anthony and Underbelly. They do all sorts of fractional design and creative work. So if you're not super creative and need a little help, they got a pretty affordable package to help. So thank you for having us. We filled up the room today, so thank you all for being here. Do me a favor. Ivan, did you have something for the group?
You know, for Chris and for Jacob, I think I commend you guys for even taking the courage to stand up in front of this crowd. You know, it's like, you know, I'm an investor, business advisor. I get pitched to all the time. You want to, you know, even if your thing is not polished, to get as much practice as you can. And this is one of the best places to do it. You know, even though you stumble on answers or you don't know about something, you know, you want to do it here rather in front of, you know, somebody like me when the risk of failure is high, right? So don't worry if you're not accustomed to speaking out or it's your first time, you know, just give it a shot, because this is the best, like I said, the best place to practice your pitch and, you know, get better at it. So
totally.
Yeah.
You're going to suck the first time no matter what you do. So you might as well suck here, right? So, and it gets better, right? Like, it just takes practice like everything else. So, and we're friends, right? It's like, this is what I do this for, why we show up. Wednesday comes every week, which can be challenging, but also is pretty awesome. So this is why we're here. for the new folks, come back. This is why we do this. So, Ivan, you're right. Like, it takes a lot to stand up sometimes, but also, like, don't get in our heads. It doesn't have to be that big of a deal either. So just come share, tell people what you're up to. So thanks for that point, Ivan. Thanks for being here. Do me a favor. I know with lots of people, it gets busy. So if you'll clear your stuff off the chairs, we'll stack them next to each other. Gives us a little more room to connect and network. The coffee looks like it's out, but there's a whole bunch. Just tip it a little bit. There's still like 10 cups in there. So there you go. Happy Wednesday. See you next week.
you.